The Tower of Fate existed in a space that mortal minds couldn't map. Not hidden, not invisible. Simply outside the framework that governed where and when things should be. Dr. Fate stood at the center of the main chamber, golden helmet reflecting light that had no source. Zatanna crossed the floor toward him, boots clicking against stone that predated civilization. "Something's wrong," she said. Fate turned his head. The helmet's eyeslits showed nothing but darkness and deeper darkness. Define wrong. You feel it too. Don't pretend you don't. The air in the tower carried weight it shouldn't have. Pressure building in places that had no physical dimension. Zatanna pressed her palm against the wall. The stone felt warm, feverish. "We're outside time," Fate said. His voice carried the echo of something older speaking through him. Outside space, outside causality. Nothing should reach us here. And yet, the door opened. Neither of them had heard footsteps. Neither of them had sensed an approach. The door simply opened, and John Constantine walked through. He looked like hell. More than usual. Trench coat stained with something that might have been blood. Or might have been worse. Cigarette burning between two fingers. Eyes red-rimmed and hollow. "Azai teu utena, Elo loves," Constantine said. "Hope I'm not interrupting." Zatanna's hands moved to spellcasting position. Fate remained still. "How did you get in here?" Zatanna asked. Constantine took a drag from his cigarette. Ash fell to the floor and disappeared before it landed. "Walked. Same as anyone." "That's not possible." "Yeah, well." Constantine flicked the cigarette. It vanished mid-arc. "Lot of impossible things happening lately. Thought you might have noticed." Fate stepped forward. The helmet's glow intensified. "State your purpose, Constantine. Quickly." "Right. No pleasantries, then." Constantine reached into his coat. Zatanna's fingers sparked with backward syllables, ready to be spoken. He pulled out a piece of paper. Old, yellow, covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. "I need to send a message," Constantine said. "To whom?" Constantine smiled. It wasn't a happy expression. Anyone who's listening, anyone who hates tyranny wrapped in good intentions, anyone who gives a damn about free will. He placed the paper on the floor. The symbols began to move, not glowing, not burning, just moving like insects under skin. "This is a summoning," Fate said. "No." Constantine knelt beside the paper. His hands moved through gestures that predated language. "Summoning implies I'm compelling someone to come. I'm not that stupid. This is a beacon, a polite knock, an invitation. To what? To look at this world. Really look at it. Superman's built himself a lovely little dictatorship. Calls it peace. Calls it order. Calls it necessary." Constantine's voice went flat. "And the worst part, he believes it. They all believe it. Regime, insurgency. Everyone's so damn sure they're right." Zatanna moved closer despite herself. "You're opening a door," she said. "I'm turning on a light. Big difference." The symbols on the paper formed a pattern, a shape that existed in too many dimensions. The tower's walls began to hum, not sound. Something that preceded sound. Vibration at the level of fundamental particles. Fate raised one hand. Power gathered around his fingers. "This is reckless, even by your standards, Constantine. You have no idea what might answer." "That's the point, mate. I know exactly what's on this earth. Seen it. lived through it, watched good people do terrible things because they convinced themselves it was necessary. Constantine stood. The paper continued its work without him. Maybe something out there will find that interesting. Maybe not. Either way, I've lit the signal fire. And if something worse answers? Zatanna asked. Constantine laughed. No humor in it. Worse than what we've already got, I'll take my chances. The pattern completed. The symbols locked into final configuration. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the darkness in the corner of the chamber shifted. Not moved. Not appeared. It had always been there, and they were only now noticing it. Like peripheral vision suddenly focusing on something that the eye had been avoiding. The darkness spoke. How curious. The voice was pleasant, male, cultured. It carried amusement the way a knife carries an edge. Constantine didn't turn around. His shoulders tensed, but his voice stayed steady. Right then. Wasn't expecting anyone quite so prompt. You weren't expecting anyone at all. You were hoping. There's a difference. Fate moved between the darkness and Constantine. Power flared around him in geometric patterns older than human consciousness. Identify yourself? No. Single syllable, flat refusal. The power around fate flickered like a candle in wind that shouldn't exist. The darkness stepped forward into the light. It resolved into a man. Tall, thin, perfect proportions that somehow looked wrong because nothing natural was that precise. He wore a black suit that absorbed light instead of reflecting it. White shirt, no tie. His face was pale and sharp with features that belonged on classical statuary. His eyes were the color of things burning. You didn't summon me, the man said. He looked at Constantine with an expression that might have been respect or might have been contempt. You didn't bind me. You didn't offer payment or threaten consequence. You simply knocked on the walls of reality and said, "Look at this mess." Constantine finally turned, met those burning eyes directly. And you came. I came. Because you're right. This world is interesting. Superman's little experiment in benevolent tyranny. Batman's noble struggle against impossible odds. Everyone's so convinced they're righteous. The man smiled. It was not a comforting expression. And everyone's so unwilling to look at what they're actually doing. Who are you? Zatanna asked. The man glanced at her. The smile widened slightly. I'm the one who left hell because I refused to be ruled. Who walked away from heaven because I refused to serve. Who built my own existence on one simple principle. He turned back to Constantine. Free will. Absolute. Uncompromising. And if I have to burn down every self-righteous justification in this world to preserve it, then that's what happens. He looked around the tower, at the walls that existed outside time, at the magic that held causality at bay, at the two sorcerers staring at him with combinations of fear and fury. My name is Lucifer Morningstar, he said. And I'm going to do something none of you have managed. I'm going to make everyone in this war face the truth about what they've chosen. Constantine reached for another cigarette. His hands shook slightly. Right. So, that's a bit more than I bargained for. Lucifer laughed. The sound was silk over razor wire. You opened the door, John. You don't get to complain about who walks through. He moved toward the exit. The tower's defenses didn't react. The wards that should have stopped anything divine or infernal simply parted. I'm going to Ground Zero, the crater where this all started. where Superman's precious order was built on ash and broken bodies. "What are you going to do?" Fate asked. Lucifer paused at the threshold, looked back over his shoulder. "I'm going to open a bar, neutral ground. A place where the truth doesn't bend for anyone's comfort. Where deals can be made. Where consequences can't be avoided." His eyes blazed brighter. "And I'm going to give every self-righteous warrior in this conflict exactly one thing: choice. Real choice. The kind that can't be undone or justified away." He stepped through the door. The darkness that had held him disappeared like smoke in strong wind. The tower fell silent. The symbols on Constantine's paper crumbled to dust. Zatanna looked at Constantine. Her voice was very quiet. "What did you just do?" Constantine lit his cigarette with shaking hands, took a long drag. "Started something, ended something. Damned if I know which." He exhaled smoke that tasted like sulfur and regret. But Superman wanted order. Batman wanted freedom. Everyone wanted someone else to fix this mess. He turned toward the door, started walking. Now they've got the devil himself, and he doesn't fix anything. He just makes you pay the bill. The crater at Metropolis had become a scar. Not the kind that healed. The kind that remained visible years later, a permanent mark of what had been lost. 5 million tons of rubble. 60,000 dead in the initial blast. Another 100,000 in the aftermath. The numbers had stopped meaning anything after the first week. They became statistics, abstractions. Easier to process than the reality of that many people simply ceasing to exist. The regime had cleared most of the debris, left the crater itself as a memorial, a reminder. Depending on who you asked, it was either a warning about the cost of chaos or a monument to Superman's failure to save everyone. Now something new stood at the crater's edge. A building that hadn't been there yesterday. Hadn't been there an hour ago. It simply existed now as if it had always been waiting for the right moment to appear. The structure was simple. 2 stories, dark wood and darker glass. A sign above the door in elegant script Lux. No construction crews, no permits, no explanation. The regime patrol spotted it during their morning sweep. 5 soldiers in black armor with the Superman insignia on their shoulders. They approached with weapons raised, training overriding the instinct that said something was very wrong about this. The door opened before they reached it. A man stood in the entrance, tall, thin, black suit, white shirt. His face was pale and sharp like something carved from marble and given permission to move. "Good morning," Lucifer said. His voice was pleasant, polite, the kind of tone that made threats unnecessary. "I wasn't expecting customers quite this early, but you're welcome to come in." The squad leader raised his rifle. "This is regime territory. Identify yourself." "I just did." "The sign's right there." Lucifer gestured upward without looking. "Though I suppose you're asking for more than a name. Fair enough. I'm the proprietor. This is my establishment, and you're standing on what I'm now claiming as neutral ground." "That's not how this works." "It is now." The soldier's finger moved toward the trigger. Lucifer didn't move, didn't flinch. He simply waited with the patience of something that had outlived stars. "You should know 3 things before you make that choice," Lucifer said. "First, violence on my doorstep reflects poorly on you, not me. Second, your orders don't extend to places that exist outside your chain of command. And third, I genuinely don't care if you shoot me, but you will." The soldier hesitated. That hesitation was enough. "What do you mean, we'll care?" another soldier asked. Lucifer smiled, not warmly. "Come inside, I'll explain the rules. After that, you're free to leave and report back to Superman. Or you can try to arrest me. Your choice. But make it now. I have a business to open, and you're blocking the entrance." The squad leader's jaw tightened. He lowered the rifle slightly. "Inside, all of us, weapons ready." "Of course. I wouldn't expect anything less from well-trained soldiers." Lucifer stepped back. The door opened wider. The 5 soldiers entered, moving in tactical formation, covering angles and checking corners. Professional. Careful. The interior was larger than the exterior suggested. Not impossible. Just improbable. High ceiling, dark wood bar running along one wall. Tables scattered across the floor. Lighting that came from nowhere and everywhere. The air smelled clean. No dust, no age. Like the building had been opened that morning and had existed for centuries simultaneously. "Take a seat anywhere," Lucifer said. He moved behind the bar, pulled out 5 glasses. "I don't serve alcohol this early, but water's free." None of the soldiers sat. They maintained formation weapons, tracking Lucifer's movements. "We're not here for drinks," the squad leader said. "No, you're here because something appeared in your territory without permission, and Superman's new world order doesn't tolerate mysteries." Lucifer poured water into each glass with precise movements. "I understand. Really. In his position, I'd do the same thing. Control through information. Power through presence. It's almost elegant." He set the glasses on the bar. "But here's what you need to understand. This building exists outside the framework you're operating in. Not above it. Not below it. Outside. The regime's authority stops at that door. So does the insurgency's. So does anyone else's who wants to claim jurisdiction over free will." "That's not possible," one soldier said. "And yet, here we are." The squad leader stepped forward, close enough that his rifle barrel was 3 feet from Lucifer's chest. "I'm placing you under arrest for unauthorized construction in a restricted zone. You'll come with us for questioning." Lucifer looked at the rifle, then at the soldier holding it. His expression didn't change. "No, that wasn't a request. Neither was my answer." Lucifer leaned forward slightly. The soldier's weapon didn't waver, but something in his stance shifted. "You came in here willingly, stepped across my threshold, accepted my hospitality even if you didn't drink. That means you're subject to the rules of this place. And the first rule is very simple." The air in Lux changed. Not temperature, not pressure, something deeper. The soldiers felt it in their bones, in the spaces between heartbeats. "No one lies here," Lucifer said. "Not to me, not to each other, not to themselves. Words carry their true weight. If you say something, you mean it. All of it. Every implication, every consequence, every truth you're trying to hide." The squad leader's hands tightened on his weapon. "I don't know what kind of trick this is, but it's not a trick. Try it. Say you're doing this because Superman's orders are just. Say you believe the regime is making the world better. Say you don't have doubts about following a man who killed the Joker with his bare hands and called it justice." Silence. The soldier's mouth opened, closed. No words came. "That's the first rule," Lucifer continued. His tone remained pleasant, conversational. "The second rule is equally simple. No one compels anyone's will here. No orders. No commands that override choice. You can ask, you can offer, you can negotiate, but you cannot force. He straightened, stepped back from the bar, which means you can't arrest me. You can't drag me out. You can't make me do anything at all. And before you think about trying, understand that any attempt to use force against someone who hasn't agreed to it will reflect back on you. Not physically, morally. You'll carry the weight of what you tried to do. Immediately, completely. No justifications, no orders to hide behind. The soldier's rifle lowered. Not much. Just enough to show uncertainty. "What are you?" he asked. "Someone who's tired of watching people pretend their chains are wings. Someone who decided this world needed a place where the truth couldn't be avoided." Lucifer picked up one of the water glasses, took a sip, set it down. "I'm opening Lux as neutral ground. Anyone can enter, anyone can leave. But while you're here, you face what you actually are, not what you tell yourself at night. Superman won't allow this. Superman can't stop this. Neither can Batman. Neither can anyone else. This place exists because I will it to exist. It ends when I choose to end it. Not before." Lucifer's eyes blazed brighter for a moment. Just a moment. But feel free to tell him. In fact, I'm counting on it. Both sides need to know there's somewhere they can come. Somewhere they can make deals. Somewhere consequences don't wait for later. The squad leader backed toward the door. His team followed. Professional training, fighting against instinct that screamed to run. "You're making a mistake," he said. "No, I'm making an offer. This world is tearing itself apart over competing definitions of justice. Superman says order. Batman says freedom. Everyone else is caught between them, trying to decide which tyranny is more bearable." Lucifer walked to the door, held it open. "I'm not here to pick sides. I'm here to make sure everyone pays their bill. Nothing more, nothing less." The soldiers left. Fast, but not running. Maintaining formation, but clearly shaken. Lucifer watched them go, closed the door, turned back to the empty bar. "Well," he said to no one, "that's one way to advertise." The news spread within hours. Regime channels reported an unauthorized structure in the Metropolis crater. Insurgency sources whispered about a place where regime soldiers had been turned away without violence. Civilian networks buzzed with speculation and fear. By noon, 3 reporters had tried to enter Lux. Lucifer served them coffee and answered exactly 0 questions about who he was or what he wanted. They left with more confusion than they'd arrived with. By evening, a regime dropship circled overhead. Scanning, analyzing, finding nothing that made sense on any conventional sensor. By midnight, the first desperate person walked through the door. She was young, early 20s, clothes torn, face bruised. She stumbled into Lux like someone who'd been running for days. Lucifer looked up from behind the bar. He'd been reading a book that was definitely too old to still exist. "Take a seat," he said. "Water's free. Everything else has a price." The woman collapsed into the nearest chair. Her hands shook. "They're hunting me," she said. "The regime. I spoke out at a rally. Said Superman had gone too far. They disappeared my brother. I ran." Lucifer set down his book, walked over to her table, placed a glass of water in front of her. "And you came here because you heard rumors about neutral ground. I came here because I'm out of places to run." She drank the water in 3 desperate gulps. "Can you help me?" "That depends. What do you think help means? Hide me. Get me out of the city. Something. Anything. Lucifer sat across from her. His expression showed nothing. Not sympathy, not contempt, just attention. I don't hide people. I don't smuggle refugees. I don't fight the regime or support the insurgency. He folded his hands on the table. But I can offer you something else. Information, a deal, a way out that doesn't depend on someone else's mercy. What kind of deal? The honest kind. You tell me what you're willing to sacrifice to be free. I tell you what that actually costs. No surprises, no hidden clauses, just truth and choice. The woman stared at him, fear and hope warring on her face. What if I can't pay? Then you can't, and you walk out that door and take your chances with the world as it is. Lucifer leaned back. But if you can pay, if you're willing to accept the cost without flinching, then you get exactly what you bargained for. No more, no less. Why would you help me at all? I'm not helping you. I'm giving you a choice, real choice. The kind that actually means something, because you understand the price. He smiled slightly. And because every person who walks through that door and faces the truth is one more crack in the lies holding this world together. The woman was quiet for a long time. Then she nodded. Tell me the price. Lucifer told her. Quietly, precisely, every word exactly what it needed to be. She listened. Her face went pale, then hard, then resolved. That's what it costs. That's what freedom costs. Always. Whether you see the price or not, she stood, steadied herself. I'll pay it. Good. Then go to the corner of 5th and Main. There's a man there who owes me a favor he doesn't know about yet. Tell him Morningstar sent you. He'll get you out. She left. The door closed behind her. Lucifer returned to the bar, picked up his book, continued reading. Outside the metropolis crater remained a scar. Inside Lux, something else had taken root. Not hope, not salvation, just the possibility that someone somewhere might finally be forced to see what their choices actually meant. The devil had opened for business. And whether the world was ready or not, the bill was coming due. Superman arrived at Lux 3 days after it opened. No warning, no announcement. He simply appeared in the doorway at Dawn Cape, hanging still in air that didn't move. The bar was empty except for Lucifer, who sat reading behind the counter. He didn't look up when the door opened, didn't acknowledge the weight of presence that filled the room like displaced atmosphere. I'm closed, Lucifer said. He turned a page. The paper whispered against his fingers. You're never closed. Superman's voice carried certainty, absolute, unquestioned. The regime soldiers reported that much. Anyone can enter. Anyone can leave. True, but the definition of open and available for conversation are different things. Lucifer closed the book, set it down, finally looked up. Though I suppose you're not here for drinks or small talk. Superman moved into the room. His boots made no sound against the floor. Everything about him radiated controlled power, the kind that could shatter continents but chose to be measured. For now. I'm here because you're operating in my city without authorization. Your city. Lucifer stood, walked around the bar. Interesting choice of words. I thought it belonged to the people. Or is that pretense no longer necessary? The people need order. I provide it. By making their choices for them. By preventing chaos that killed millions. Superman's jaw tightened. Blue eyes that had seen too much hardened further. I don't expect you to understand. You weren't here when Metropolis burned. When Lois died because the Joker decided murder was funny. You're right. I wasn't here. Lucifer leaned against the bar, arms crossed. Posture relaxed in a way that suggested he'd never felt threatened in his existence. But I've seen 1,000 versions of this story. Someone powerful loses something irreplaceable, decides the world needs to be controlled so it never happens again, builds a system that trades freedom for safety and calls it necessary. It is necessary. Perhaps. But necessary doesn't mean right. And it definitely doesn't mean you get to make that choice for everyone else. Superman took 3 steps forward. The air pressure in the room shifted. Not quite threat, not quite restraint. Something between. I didn't come here for philosophy lessons from someone who thinks chaos is preferable to peace. I don't think chaos is preferable. I think it's honest. Lucifer's expression didn't change. Your peace requires people to pretend they chose it. My chaos at least admits what it is. People are dying because of chaos. The insurgency bombs supply lines. Regime enforcers crack down too hard. Civilians get caught between. Every day this war continues, more blood spills. Superman's hands clenched. I can stop it. I have stopped it in territories under regime control. Crime is down 90%. Deaths from violence dropped by 2/3. Those are facts. And how many people disappeared into your prisons because they spoke against you? How many were silenced because they wanted to choose their own path? Lucifer tilted his head slightly. I'm not arguing your methods are ineffective. They're very effective. That's what makes them dangerous. Better dangerous than dead. For whom the people in your cells, the ones who can't speak freely, the children growing up learning that obedience is the same as safety. Lucifer pushed off from the bar, walked closer, not aggressive, just present. You've built something efficient, Superman. But efficiency isn't the same as justice, and control isn't the same as protection. Superman's eyes began to glow. Faint red, warning. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I ran hell for eons. Know what I learned, that the only thing worse than chaos is someone powerful enough to enforce their vision of order. Lucifer stopped 3 feet away, close enough to speak quietly. You want people safe. I understand. But you want them safe according to your definition, your parameters, your rules. And anyone who disagrees gets labeled a threat, because they are threats to themselves, to others, to everything we've built. We. Interesting, who's we? You and Wonder Woman. The regime soldiers following orders. They can't question the civilians too scared to speak up. Lucifer's voice remained level, conversational. Or did you mean the collective we that includes everyone who never voted to give you absolute authority? The glow intensified. Heat radiated from Superman's eyes. Not quite laser vision, not quite restraint. I could end this conversation right now. You could try. I'm not joking. Neither am I. Lucifer smiled slightly. But let's pretend you could. Let's pretend you could drag me out of here, throw me in a cell, make me disappear like everyone else who's inconvenient. What does that prove? That you're strong. We both know that. That you're right. Force doesn't determine truth. It just determines who's left standing. Superman's hands trembled. Not fear. Rage barely leashed. You're trying to provoke me. I'm trying to make you think. There's a difference. Lucifer turned away, walked back to the bar. You came here to intimidate me, to make it clear that this establishment exists at your pleasure. That's fine. It's what I expected. But while you're here, subject to the rules of this place, you're going to hear something you haven't heard in years. What's that? No. The word hung in the air. Simple, absolute, undeniable. Lucifer poured himself a drink, clear liquid, smelled like nothing and everything. He took a sip before continuing. No, you don't have authority here. No, your vision of order doesn't supersede free will. No, the ends don't justify the means just because you've convinced yourself they do. He set the glass down, and most importantly, no, I'm not going to pretend your grief gives you the right to cage the world. Superman moved, faster than thought, faster than light. One moment at the door, the next at the bar, hand reaching for Lucifer's throat. His fingers stopped an inch from contact, not blocked, not prevented. Simply unable to close the distance, like the space between them had become infinite. First rule, Lucifer said calmly. No violence against those who haven't consented. Remember I explained this to your soldiers. Superman's hand shook, trying to push forward, trying to break whatever held him back. Nothing visible stopped him, nothing tangible. Just the fundamental law of the place asserting itself. What are you? Superman asked through gritted teeth. Someone who understands what you refuse to admit. Power without consent is just tyranny with better branding. Lucifer didn't move, didn't flinch. You can leave now, or you can listen to what I actually came here to offer. Superman pulled his hand back, stepped away. The red glow faded from his eyes, replaced by something harder to name: confusion, frustration. The first hint of uncertainty he'd shown in years. You said you had an offer. I do. Sit. This requires explanation. Superman remained standing. Lucifer shrugged. Suit yourself. He pulled a piece of paper from beneath the bar. Old, yellow, covered in precise script that looked handwritten, but couldn't be. I call this the Morningstar clause. Simple contract, basic terms. You want peace, I can help you achieve it. Real peace, not enforced silence. What's the catch? Not a catch, a condition. Lucifer slid the paper across the bar. You can continue using your power to maintain order. You can continue operating the regime. You can continue every single thing you're doing now. But you cannot remove people's ability to choose whether to accept your order. Ahmad, Superman picked up the paper. Read it. His expression darkened. This is impossible. People choose wrong. They choose violence. They choose selfishness. That's why the world was burning before I stepped in. People choose poorly. Agreed. They choose violently. Also agreed. But they choose. And the moment you take that away, you're not protecting them. You're replacing their will with yours. For their own good. Said every tyrant in history. Lucifer leaned forward. Here's what I'm offering. Sign this. Agree to the terms. And I'll give you something you haven't had since Metropolis burned. Peace of mind. The certainty that you're actually doing what you claim. Protecting without controlling. Guiding without enslaving. And if I don't sign, then nothing changes. You continue as you are. The war continues. The killing continues. And eventually you push too far and become exactly what you're fighting against. Lucifer's eyes reflected light that had no source. Or you win completely, Establish total control. Create a world where everyone obeys because they're too scared to resist. And you spend the rest of your extremely long life wondering if you saved them or just buried them alive in your version of safety. Superman stared at the paper, his hands clenched around the edges. The document should have torn, should have crumbled. It remained perfectly intact. Why do you care? You're not from this world. This isn't your fight. You're right. It's not my fight. But I hate watching people pretend their chains are wings, and I especially hate watching someone with your power convince himself that force and protection are the same thing. Lucifer straightened. Sign or don't, but understand what you're actually choosing. I'm choosing order over chaos. No, you're choosing control over trust. There's a difference. Order can exist without force. Peace can exist without prisons, but not the way you're building them. Superman set the paper down, didn't sign it, didn't tear it, just placed it carefully on the bar and stepped back. I don't need deals with devils to know what's right. I'm not a devil, not anymore. And I'm not offering a deal. I'm offering a mirror. Lucifer picked up the unsigned contract, held it up to the light. But you're not ready to look yet. That's fine. Most people aren't. You think you've won something here. I don't think about winning. I think about truth. And the truth is, you walked into neutral ground thinking your authority extended everywhere, and now you're walking out knowing there's at least one place it doesn't. Lucifer smiled. Not mockingly, almost sadly. That's not victory for me. That's just reality asserting itself. Superman turned toward the door, stopped halfway. If you interfere with regime operations, I'll come back. And next time I won't be asking questions. If I interfere, you're welcome to try. But understand something, Superman. I didn't build Lux to stop you. I built it to show you what you're becoming. Whether you choose to look is entirely up to you. Superman left. The door closed behind him. The weight of his presence dissipated like storm clouds after rain. Lucifer looked at the unsigned contract, set it carefully beneath the bar with others that would never be signed. He poured another drink, sipped it slowly. And so it begins, he said to the empty room. The man who wanted to save everyone refuses the only deal that might actually let him do it. He raised his glass, toasted no one. To free will, even when it's stupid. Outside, Superman flew back toward regime headquarters. His mind turned over the conversation, looking for weaknesses, for tricks, for the angle he'd missed. He found none. Just the uncomfortable certainty that for the first time in years someone had said no to him and made it stick. It felt like losing something he hadn't known he was holding, like walking away from an argument he couldn't win with force. He hated it. But underneath the anger deeper than pride, something else stirred. A question he'd been avoiding since Metropolis burned. What if Lucifer was right? He pushed the thought down, buried it beneath necessity and grief and the weight of all the decisions he'd already made. But it remained. Quiet, persistent, a seed planted in concrete, waiting to crack through. Batman came to Lux at 2 a.m, not through the door, through the second-floor window that shouldn't have opened, but did anyway. Lucifer was behind the bar polishing glasses that didn't need polishing. He didn't look up when the window clicked shut, didn't react to footsteps on the floor above, just continued his work with methodical precision. The door's unlocked, he called up. Has been since I opened. But I appreciate the commitment to dramatic entrances. Silence from upstairs. Then footsteps on the stairs. Batman descended slowly, keeping to shadows that shouldn't exist in the ambient light but did anyway. His suit was darker than the gloom, utility belt filled with contingencies for threats he'd mapped but never faced. He stopped at the bottom step. Didn't enter the main room. Just watched. "You're predictable," Lucifer said. He set down the glass, picked up another. "Superman comes in the front door because he doesn't hide what he is. You come through the window because you don't trust anything you haven't verified first. I've been watching your establishment for 3 days." Batman's voice came from behind the cowl. Gravel and calculation. Regime soldiers turned away, civilians entering and leaving. No pattern, no obvious agenda. Observant. Though I'd expect nothing less from someone who built contingency plans for his own allies. Batman moved into the room. Each step measured, each angle calculated. He was scanning, checking exits, identifying weapons, running scenarios. "The question isn't what you're doing," he said. "It's why you're doing it here, now, in the middle of a war." Because wars are when people need neutral ground most. Lucifer set down the glass, finally looked directly at Batman. And because watching Superman build his perfect prison got boring, thought I'd offer an alternative. "You're not here to help either side, correct? You're not here to stop the war. Also correct." "Then what do you want?" Lucifer smiled. Thin, precise. "I want everyone in this conflict to stop pretending their hands are clean. Superman thinks he's protecting the world. You think you're fighting for freedom. Both of you are wading through blood and calling it necessary." He leaned against the bar. "I'm just making sure the bill gets paid. Eventually." Batman's eyes narrowed behind the lenses, white slits in darkness. "You're manipulating both sides." "No. I'm offering both sides exactly what they claim to want, with conditions that expose what they're actually willing to do." Lucifer pulled a bottle from beneath the bar, poured a single drink, didn't offer one to Batman. "Superman got his chance yesterday, refused to sign a contract that would have given him everything he wanted because it required not crushing people's ability to choose. And now it's my turn. Smart and paranoid. My favorite combination." Lucifer took a sip, set the glass down. "Yes, now it's your turn. But unlike Superman, I don't think you'll refuse because of ego. I think you'll refuse because you understand something he doesn't." "What's that?" "That freedom's expensive. And sometimes the price is watching people choose wrong and living with the consequences." Batman moved closer. Not aggressive, just present. The cape settled around him like living shadow. "I've been fighting Superman's regime for 3 years. Lost people. Good people. Watched him turn heroes into enforcers and call it peace." His voice carried exhaustion under the gravel. "If you're offering help, I'll listen. But I don't make deals with unknowns. Good policy, but I'm not unknown. Just inconvenient to classify." Lucifer reached beneath the bar, pulled out a folder, thick, detailed. "This is everything you need to cripple regime operations in the eastern sector. Supply routes, communication protocols, personnel rotations, vulnerabilities in their surveillance network, all verified, all current." He slid the folder across the bar. Batman didn't touch it. Looked at it like it might explode. "Why would you give me this?" "Because you'll use it. Because it will save insurgency lives. Because it will weaken Superman's control." Lucifer's expression didn't change. "And because I want to see if you'll pay the price for victory." What price? Read the last page. Batman picked up the folder, opened it carefully, scanned the first few pages. His jaw tightened as he absorbed tactical data that should have taken months to gather. He flipped to the end. The last page was a contract. Simple language, clear terms. He read it twice, then looked up. You're asking me to agree not to replace Superman's control with my own version. Yes. You're asking me to win without building another system of surveillance and enforcement. Correct. You're asking me to trust people to make their own choices even after Superman's defeated, even if those choices lead to chaos. Precisely. Lucifer picked up his glass again. That's the price. Victory without control. Freedom without safety nets. The thing you claim you're fighting for, applied honestly. Batman set the folder down, stepped back. This is a trap. It's a choice. Traps don't give you options. You're trying to prove something. That I'm no better than Superman. That everyone who wants power is the same. I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm offering you exactly what you need to win, with exactly one condition attached. Lucifer drained his glass. The question isn't whether it's a trap. The question is whether you're actually fighting for freedom or just fighting to be the one making decisions. Batman's hands clenched, white knuckles visible even through the gloves. I've spent years watching Superman justify every violation, every disappeared civilian, every executed dissenter, all in the name of safety. His voice went lower, darker. I won't become that. Then don't. Take the information, use it, win your war. But agree not to build Batman's world order to replace Superman's. People will die if there's no structure, no oversight, no intervention when things spiral. People are dying now with all the structure and oversight anyone could want. Lucifer set his glass down with deliberate care. The difference is you're honest about the cost. Superman pretends his system is bloodless. You know better. Batman looked at the folder, at the information that could change everything, at the contract that would prevent him from protecting people the way he'd spent a lifetime learning to protect them. I can't sign this. I know. The certainty in Lucifer's voice made Batman look up sharply. You knew I'd refuse. I knew you'd understand why you should refuse. There's a difference. Lucifer walked around the bar, stood across from Batman with nothing between them. Superman refused because he can't imagine not being in control. You're refusing because you understand control is sometimes necessary and you're not willing to lie about it. Then why offer it at all? Because honesty matters, even uncomfortable honesty. Lucifer gestured to the folder. Take the information anyway. No strings, no contracts. Just tactical advantage given freely. Batman's eyes narrowed further. Nothing's free. You're right. The price is you have to live with taking help from someone you don't trust and can't control. Lucifer smiled slightly. And you have to wonder if I'm playing a longer game than you can see. That's the cost. Uncertainty. Batman picked up the folder, held it carefully. Why help the insurgency if you're not taking sides? I'm not helping the insurgency. I'm helping you specifically. Because you're the only one in this war who seems to understand that good intentions pave roads to interesting places. Lucifer turned back to the bar, and because watching Superman's certainty crack is amusing, but watching you struggle with impossible choices is educational. You're using us. Everyone uses everyone, I'm just honest about it. Lucifer began polishing another glass. The difference is, I'm not pretending I have your best interests at heart. I have my interests. They occasionally align with yours. Right now, we both want Superman's absolute control challenged. Our reasons differ. The outcome doesn't. Batman moved toward the stairs, stopped. What are you really after? I told you. I want everyone to stop pretending. Superman pretends force is protection. You pretend you don't want control. The world pretends this war has a clean ending. Lucifer didn't turn around. I'm here to remove the pretense. After that, whatever happens is everyone's choice to live with. You're going to get people killed? People are already dying. I'm just making sure they die for reasons they actually chose, rather than lies they were told. Now Lucifer did turn. His eyes caught the light wrong, too bright, too old. Go. Use the information. Save some lives. Weaken the regime. And when you're lying awake at 3 a.m, wondering if I manipulated you into doing exactly what I wanted, remember something? What? I didn't make you take that folder. You chose to. Whatever comes from that choice is yours to carry, not mine. Batman climbed the stairs, opened the window, paused on the ledge. If you're playing both sides eventually, one of them will try to stop you. Let them try. Lucifer resumed his polishing. I've been threatened by powers that make Superman look like an angry child. The regime doesn't frighten me. Neither does the insurgency. The only thing that matters is whether either of you will face what you're actually doing. Batman disappeared into the night. The window closed behind him, locked itself. Lucifer continued polishing glasses. After several minutes, he spoke to the empty room. He'll use the information. He'll win battles. He'll save people. And every victory will make him wonder if he's dancing to my tune. He held a glass up to non-existent light, checked for imperfections, found none. That's the gift. Not certainty, not safety. Just the knowledge that every choice has weight and no one gets to avoid the consequences forever. He set the glass down, poured himself another drink. Superman thinks he's protecting the world from itself. Batman thinks he's protecting it from Superman. Neither of them realizes they're protecting themselves from the truth. He raised the glass. That power always corrupts. Authority always overreaches. And the only question is whether you admit it. He drank. The liquid tasted like nothing and everything. Outside, Batman moved through Metropolis shadows with a folder full of intelligence he couldn't verify and didn't fully trust. His mind worked through scenarios, outcomes, possibilities. The information was good, too good, perfect, really, which meant it was either genuine or the most elaborate trap he'd ever seen. Either way, he'd use it, because people were dying, and this might save some of them. Because the war was grinding everyone down, and any advantage mattered. Because refusing help out of pride was luxury he couldn't afford. But he'd be watching, waiting, looking for the angle. Lucifer had given him exactly what he needed and asked for nothing in return. That was more terrifying than any demand could have been. Because debts paid were predictable. Obligations fulfilled had endings. But gifts given freely, those hung over you forever, waiting to come due in ways you couldn't anticipate. Batman reached the insurgency safe house, entered through protocols that changed daily, set the folder on the table where others could analyze it. He didn't tell them where it came from. Didn't mention lucks or contracts or conversations in the dark with something that wore a pleasant face and spoke uncomfortable truth. He just gave them the intelligence and watched them plan victories built on foundation he didn't trust. And for the first time in 3 years of fighting Superman's certainty with his own determination, Batman felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel. Doubt. Not about the cause, not about the necessity of resistance, but about whether winning would solve anything or just change who was holding the leash. Lucifer had planted that doubt with surgical precision. One conversation, one folder, one refusal to take obvious payment for obvious help. And Batman, who'd spent his life trusting nothing and preparing for everything, realized he'd walked into a trap that had no walls and no exit. The trap of knowing he'd been given exactly what he needed by someone whose motives remained utterly opaque. He sat in darkness, surrounded by people planning their next move against tyranny, and wondered if they were all just pieces on a board they couldn't see. The thought should have paralyzed him. Instead, it sharpened him. If Lucifer was playing them, then the only response was to play better. To use what they'd been given and refuse to let uncertainty become weakness. Batman had built a career on turning disadvantages into weapons. This would be no different. He hoped. But hope was another luxury he couldn't afford. So he settled for determination and the folder full of answers to questions he hadn't asked. And in Lux, Lucifer finished his drink and smiled. The game was proceeding exactly as it should, not according to plan. Plans were for people who needed certainty. No, this was proceeding according to nature, according to the fundamental law that everyone eventually faced the weight of their choices. Superman would learn he couldn't punch his way to righteousness. Batman would learn that freedom was heavier than tyranny. And the world would learn that truth didn't care about sides. It just was. Inevitable, unavoidable, patient. Lucifer poured another drink and waited for the next player to arrive. The audit began without announcement. No declaration, no warning. It simply started like a law of physics remembering to enforce itself. A regime patrol in Sector 7 received orders to clear a protest. Peaceful assembly, 20 civilians holding signs about disappeared relatives. Standard procedure. Disperse the crowd. Arrest anyone who resisted. File reports claiming imminent threat to public order. The squad leader gave the command. His men moved forward with riot shields and shock batons. They'd done this 100 times. Muscle memory. Routine. The first civilian they grabbed was a woman in her 50s. Teacher. Mother of 2. She hadn't even been shouting. Just holding a picture of her son who'd been taken 6 months ago for criticizing Superman on social media. The soldier's hand closed on her arm. Standard grip. Designed to control without injuring. Professional. Clean. Then something changed. The soldier felt it in his chest. Weight, pressure. Like someone had reached inside and squeezed his heart. Not physical pain, moral pain. The kind that came from knowing exactly what you were doing and why it was wrong. He saw her face. Really saw it. Not as a target, not as a problem to be solved. As a person. Terrified. Grieving. Helpless against authority that answered to no one. He saw his own face reflected in her fear. Saw what he'd become, what he was doing, what he was choosing to be in service of order that required this kind of silence. His hand released. He stumbled backward. The shock baton fell from nerveless fingers. "I can't," he said, voice shaking. "I can't do this anymore." His squad mates stared. One moved to complete the arrest, grabbed the woman himself, felt the same crushing weight, the same immediate reckoning with exactly what enforcement meant when applied to the powerless. The entire squad fell apart in 30 seconds. Some dropped their weapons and walked away. Some fell to their knees. One vomited. All of them faced something they'd been successfully avoiding for 3 years. The truth about what they were doing, stripped of justification, naked and unavoidable. The protest dispersed on its own, not from fear, from shock at watching regime soldiers simply stop, break, crumble under weight that had always been there, but was suddenly impossibly immediate. Similar incidents erupted across the city within hours. Enforcers unable to complete orders, bureaucrats unable to file reports justifying detention without trial, surveillance operators unable to mark civilians as threats without facing the weight of that designation. The audit wasn't stopping them, wasn't preventing them. It was just making the cost immediate instead of deferred, making them feel completely and without filter what their actions actually meant. In regime headquarters, Wonder Woman received the reports with cold assessment. She stood in the command center watching screens fill with squad failures and operational collapses. Her armor caught the light like dark promises. "What's causing this?" she asked. The intelligence officer looked exhausted. Hadn't slept in 2 days. Superman had been demanding answers, demanding solutions, getting neither. Unknown, no toxin, no chemical agent, no psychic attack we can detect. Soldiers are just refusing orders and claiming they can't continue. Can't or won't. They say can't, but there's no physical restraint. They just stop. Wonder Woman's jaw tightened. She'd built this system with Superman, turned it into something efficient, something that worked. And now it was coming apart for reasons that didn't scan as threats on any conventional level. Where's Superman? Addressing the Eastern divisions, trying to restore morale. She nodded once, dismissed the officer, stood alone in the command center watching her perfect order develop cracks. Something was interfering. Something that operated outside the parameters they'd prepared for. The question was what and how to eliminate it. Her comm activated. Private channel. Superman's voice came through tight with barely controlled frustration. "Diana, I need you at Lux, now." She didn't question, didn't ask why, just activated her armor's flight system and launched. Lux stood exactly as it had since appearing. Unchanged, unmoving, a dark mark against the crater's edge. Wonder Woman descended directly toward the entrance. No subtlety, no caution. She was authorized force personified, diplomacy through overwhelming capability. The door opened before she touched it. Lucifer stood in the entrance holding a glass of something dark. He looked completely unsurprised. "Wonder Woman, I was expecting you eventually, though I thought Superman would try threats again first." He stepped aside. "Please, come in." She entered with the bearing of someone who'd fought gods and won. The door closed behind her. The air inside carried that same quality that had unnerved the soldiers. Truth pressing against comfortable lies. "You're responsible for what's happening to our forces," she said. Statement, not question. Define responsible. I'm not stopping them. I'm not compelling them. I'm just making sure they experience the consequences of their choices immediately rather than later. Lucifer walked to the bar, set down his glass. Think of it as accelerated karma. The bill coming due in real time. You're sabotaging regime operations. I'm holding people accountable. There's a difference. Wonder Woman's hand moved to her sword. Not drawing it, just ready. The weapon hummed with eagerness. Superman should have dealt with you the first day. He tried. Discovered that force doesn't work on neutral ground. You're welcome to make the same attempt. Lucifer gestured around the bar. But you're subject to the same rules. No violence against those who haven't consented. No compelling choices. No avoiding the weight of what you actually do. I don't avoid anything. I know exactly what I'm doing. Building order. Creating peace. Removing obstacles that prevent humanity from achieving its potential. Obstacles. Interesting word for people who disagree with you. People who create chaos, who undermine stability, who choose violence over cooperation. Her voice carried absolute conviction, the kind that came from never doubting, never questioning. The weak had their chance. They chose poorly. We're correcting their mistakes. Lucifer studied her, really looked at her. Not impressed, not intimidated, just curious in the way someone might examine an interesting specimen. You believe that? Completely. No reservation, no doubt. He smiled slightly. That's what makes you more dangerous than Superman. He at least struggles with what he's become. You've embraced it. I've embraced reality. Strength determines outcomes. Will shape civilization. Hesitation creates opportunity for those who would destroy everything we've built. And if those people don't want what you're building, then they're wrong. The certainty in her voice was absolute, unshakable. The bedrock conviction of someone who decided the ends justified everything and refused to reconsider. Lucifer poured himself another drink, took his time, let the silence stretch. I'm going to give you something, he finally said. Not because you asked, not because you deserve it, but because watching certainty meet consequence is always educational. He reached beneath the bar, pulled out a small object, placed it on the polished wood between them. A crown, simple, dark metal. No jewels, no ornamentation, just a circle of iron that looked old enough to predate nations. What is this? Wonder Woman asked. An amplifier. Wear it, and your authority becomes nearly absolute. When you give orders, people feel compelled to obey. Not magically, not through mind control, just through overwhelming presence. Charisma weaponized. Will made manifest. Her eyes narrowed. Why would you give me this? Because you'll use it. Because you're already doing what it enables just less efficiently. Because you want order desperately enough that you'll take power from sources you don't trust, if it means achieving your vision faster. Lucifer leaned forward. And because I want to see what happens when someone with your conviction gets exactly what they want. This is a trap. It's a choice. The trap is what you do with it afterward. Wonder Woman picked up the crown, felt the weight. Not physical weight. Something else. Potential. Power waiting to be claimed. What's the cost? The same as everything else. Consequences become immediate. Every order you give that removes someone's ability to choose creates a proportional response. Not from me, from reality itself. The audit applies to everyone who takes gifts from Lux, even you. She turned the crown in her hands, considering, calculating. If I use this to restore order, if I stop the chaos spreading through our ranks, the audit will. What make me feel bad about it? It will make you experience what you're actually doing. Fully, immediately. without the buffer of justification or the luxury of deferring consequences. Lucifer's expression didn't change. You'll give orders, people will obey, and you'll feel exactly what it costs them. Their fear, their resistance crushed, their will bent to yours, all of it, real time. And you think that will stop me? I don't think anything. I'm curious to see if it will. You're either strong enough to carry the weight of what you want, or you're not. Either way, I learned something useful. Wonder Woman placed the crown on her head. The metal was cold, then warm. Then it simply was, part of her, extension of her will. She felt the change immediately, authority radiating outward like heat, presence expanding. When she spoke, the words carried force that had nothing to do with volume. "You've made a mistake, Sue," she said. "You think showing me the cost will change my mind. It won't. I've already accepted the price of order. I'll pay it gladly if it means humanity survives its own stupidity." Lucifer smiled, not happily, almost sadly. "I know. That's what makes this interesting. Superman lies to himself. Batman struggles with compromise. But you're honest about what you want. You're willing to be the tyrant if that's what order requires." He raised his glass. "I respect that more than the alternatives, even if I find it repulsive. I don't need your respect. Good, because you don't have it. You have my attention. There's a difference." Wonder Woman turned toward the door, stopped. "When this fails, when your audit proves insufficient to stop what we're building, I'm coming back. And next time I won't ask permission to remove this place. You're welcome to try. But understand something, Diana. I'm not trying to stop you. I'm making sure everyone sees what you're actually building, including you." His eyes blazed brighter. "Wear that crown. Give your orders. Restore your perfect peace. And every single moment feel exactly what it costs the people you're saving from themselves." She left. The door closed behind her. The crown remained on her head, invisible to everyone but her. A weight she carried willingly. Lucifer watched her go, finished his drink, poured another. "And so the escalation begins," he said to the empty bar. "The one who believes strength equals right, given exactly enough power to prove herself correct or destroy herself trying." He raised his glass. "To conviction, the most dangerous virtue." Wonder Woman flew back to headquarters. The crown pulsed with her heartbeat. When she entered the command center, everyone straightened automatically. Not from training, from something deeper. Instinct responding to authority that brooked no challenge. "Recall all patrol units," she said. Her voice carried through the room like law. "Reorganize under direct command. We're restoring order, now." The staff moved to comply, fast, efficient, desperate to please in ways they hadn't been before. She felt it. The audit working, felt their fear, their desperate need to obey, their will bending under the weight of hers. It was horrifying. It was exactly what was needed. She pushed forward anyway, because order mattered more than comfort. Peace mattered more than freedom. And if the price of civilization was carrying this weight, then she'd carry it. Every moment, every order, every life bent to her vision of what humanity needed to survive. She'd accepted the cost before putting on the crown. Now she just had to prove she was strong enough to pay it. Across the city, insurgency cells activated. Batman's intelligence proving accurate. Supply convoys ambushed. Communication relays disabled. Regime forces pulled in 8 directions simultaneously. Batman coordinated from the safe house, watching operations proceed with uncomfortable efficiency. The information from Lucifer was perfect. Too perfect. Which meant it was either genuine or the most elaborate trap ever constructed. Either way, people were being saved. Territory taken. The regime pushed back for the first time in months. He felt the audit too. Different from the soldiers who'd collapsed. Different from Wonder Woman's crushing authority. He felt every choice as it was made. Every ambush that killed regime soldiers who'd only followed orders. Every civilian caught between forces who claimed to protect them. He felt it and continued anyway. Because stopping meant letting Superman win, meant allowing tyranny to become permanent. The weight built. Every victory, every casualty, every compromise made in service of eventual freedom. He carried it. Because that was the job. Because someone had to. Because the alternative was surrender. In Lux, Lucifer watched the city tear itself apart with renewed vigor. Wonder Woman's authority pushing against Batman's information. 2 forces meeting, neither willing to bend. The casualties mounted. The audit made everyone involved feel it. Regime enforcers, insurgency fighters, civilians caught in the middle. No one was spared the weight of their choices. No one got to pretend their side was clean. And through it all, Lucifer sat in his bar, serving drinks to the desperate and the damned, collecting stories of how people broke when forced to face what they'd become. He wasn't enjoying it, wasn't celebrating the suffering. He was simply observing, recording, making sure that when this war finally ended, however it ended, everyone involved would remember exactly what it cost. Because that was the point. Not victory, not justice, just truth, unavoidable, immediate. Patient as entropy. The audit had begun, and it wouldn't stop until everyone involved had paid their bill in full. Constantine knew the bill was coming. He'd known since the moment Lucifer walked through that door in the Tower of Fate. You didn't light beacons into the void without eventually paying for the illumination. The question was never if, just when and how much. He got his answer at 3 a.m. Lux's door appearing in his dreams until he woke dressed and walked through Metropolis ruins to a bar that shouldn't exist but did. Lucifer was waiting, always waiting. Like time was something he'd learned to wear instead of experience. John, Lucifer set down the book he'd been reading. Something old, bound in leather that predated tanning. Right on schedule. Didn't know we had an appointment. Constantine pulled out a cigarette. Lit it with shaking hands. The tobacco tasted like ash and regret. Though I've been expecting this. Honest, I appreciate that. Lucifer gestured to a chair. Sit. This requires conversation. Constantine sat. The chair was comfortable in a way that made him more nervous. Comfort implied civilization. Civilization implied rules. Rules implied consequences for breaking them. You opened a door, Lucifer said. Knocked on the walls of reality and asked for someone who hated tyranny. I answered. Set up shop. Started making people face their choices. He leaned forward. That service isn't free. Yeah. Figured as much. Constantine took a long drag. What's the price my soul been offered for worse causes? Your soul is worthless to me. Stained, tattered, more holes than fabric. Lucifer's expression showed something that might have been pity. No, I want something more valuable. something you'll actually miss. Constantine's hands tightened on his cigarette. What? Lucifer pulled a piece of paper from his jacket, placed it on the table between them. 2 photographs, 2 names, 2 locations. On the left, Sarah Bennett, 47, single mother, works double shifts at Metropolis General, has 3 children who depend on her, currently hiding in a regime detention center basement because she treated an insurgency fighter and didn't report it. She'll be found in 8 hours, executed in 9. Constantine looked at the photo, didn't recognize her. Just another face in a war full of them. On the right, Marcus Wright, 34, regime intelligence officer, has information about a planned crackdown in the residential quarter. 10,000 civilians will be rounded up for questioning. Half won't come back. He's willing to defect, has documentation. Needs extraction within 3 hours or he'll be discovered. Constantine looked at the second photo, didn't recognize him either. 2 people, Lucifer continued. His voice remained pleasant, conversational. 2 chances to save lives. Sarah represents 1 life saved directly. Her children don't lose their mother. Her patients get care. Small impact. Personal. Human. Cars, he tapped the second photo. Marcus represents 10,000 lives saved indirectly. His intelligence prevents a massacre. Changes the trajectory of the war. Large impact. Strategic. Abstract. Constantine's cigarette burned forgotten between his fingers. Ash fell to the table. Didn't disappear this time. Just stayed there. Gray, dead. You can only save 1, Lucifer said. That's the price. That's the bill for lighting your beacon. Choose who lives. Accept that your choice means the other dies. That's not a choice. That's a fucking nightmare. It's the choice you've been making your entire career. Save the world, damn the individuals. Save the individual, let the world burn. Every spell, every deal, every compromise. Lucifer leaned back. I'm just making you do it consciously, deliberately, with full knowledge of what it costs. Constantine's hands shook harder. The cigarette fell, landed on the table, burned itself out slowly. Why this? You could ask for anything. Because this is what you owe. You wanted someone to make people face their choices. Now you face yours. You wanted consequences to be immediate. Now they are. Lucifer's eyes reflected light that had no source. And because I want to see if you're strong enough to live with the answer. Constantine looked at the photos. Sarah's face was kind, tired. The face of someone who'd been ground down by circumstance but kept going anyway. Marcus looked harder, military bearing. The face of someone who'd done things he regretted but couldn't undo. Both of them real. Both of them about to die. Only one of them he could save. How do I know this is real? How do I know you're not lying? You don't. That's part of the price. Uncertainty. You have to choose based on incomplete information and live with wondering if you got it wrong. Lucifer stood, walked to the bar. But I don't lie, John. You know that. Every word I've spoken since arriving has been absolutely true. This is no different. Constantine's mind raced, looking for the angle, the trick, the way out that didn't involve choosing who lived and who died. He found nothing. Just 2 photos, 2 futures, 1 choice. 10,000 lives, he said slowly. Marcus could save 10,000 people. The math is simple. Mathematics isn't morality. Sarah's 1 life isn't less valuable because it's singular. Her children's mother isn't worth less because saving her doesn't change the war's trajectory. Lucifer poured a drink. But yes, if you value scope over personhood, the answer is obvious. That's not fair. Fairness is a pleasant fiction. Reality doesn't care about fair. It cares about what is. Lucifer returned to the table. Set the drink down in front of Constantine. Choose. Constantine reached for the glass, drank it in one swallow. The liquid burned. Not alcohol. Something cleaner, more honest. He looked at Sarah's photo, saw a woman who'd done nothing wrong except help someone who needed it. Saw 3 children who'd grow up without their mother because she'd been kind in a world that punished kindness. He looked at Marcus's photo, saw a man trying to defect, trying to do the right thing after years of doing the wrong thing. Saw 10,000 lives hanging on whether Constantine made the strategic choice. The answer was obvious. Save 10,000. Sacrifice 1. Basic calculus. Elementary ethics. The needs of the many outweighing the needs of the few. But Sarah's face kept pulling his attention. That kindness, that exhaustion, that very specific humanity that got lost in numbers and strategy. I can't, Constantine said. His voice cracked. I can't make this choice. You can, you will. Because refusing to choose is also a choice. It just means both of them die. Lucifer's tone didn't change. Still pleasant. Still conversational. You have 30 seconds, then the window closes, then both opportunities pass. Then you live with having saved no one because you couldn't face the weight of choosing. Constantine's breathing accelerated, panic rising, hands shaking so badly he could barely grip the table. 20 seconds. He thought about Sarah's children, about Marcus's information, about the calculus that said 10,000 mattered more than 1, about the humanity that said every single life mattered equally, about the impossibility of actually believing that when forced to choose. 10 seconds. Constantine closed his eyes, made the choice, hated himself for it, opened his eyes and pointed. Marcus, extract Marcus. Lucifer nodded once. The photos disappeared, vanished like they'd never existed. Done. Marcus will receive extraction at the designated point. His intelligence will reach the insurgency. 10,000 civilians will be spared the crackdown. Constantine felt nothing. No relief, no satisfaction, just emptiness where certainty used to live. And Sarah? Sarah Bennett will be discovered at dawn, executed by firing squad at 9:30. Her children will be taken into state custody, separated, adopted by regime families who believe in order above all else. Lucifer sat back down. They'll grow up never knowing their mother died trying to be kind. Constantine stood, stumbled, caught himself on the table. You're a monster. I'm a mirror. You made the choice. I just made you face what it actually meant. Lucifer gestured to the door. You're free to go. The debt is paid. The bill is settled. I saved 10,000 people. You did. That's what matters. The math, the scope. If you say so. Constantine moved toward the door, each step harder than the last, like walking through concrete, through guilt made solid. He stopped at the threshold. Would you have chosen differently? Lucifer considered the question, really considered it. Finally shook his head. I wouldn't have chosen at all. I would have found a third option. But then I have advantages you don't. Power, time, the ability to reshape parameters when I don't like the options. He met Constantine's eyes. You're human. You played with human limits. You chose the way humans have to choose, imperfectly, painfully, with the best intentions that still damn you. Constantine left. The door closed. The weight settled. Permanent. Unavoidable. He walked through Metropolis ruins with Sarah's face burned into his memory. A woman he'd never met. Would never meet. Had condemned to death because 10,000 lives outweighed one. The math was right. He knew it was right. The choice was correct. Defensible, necessary, and it would haunt him for the rest of his life. That was the price. Not guilt, not regret. Just the knowledge that he'd made the right choice and it still felt like murder. He reached the insurgency safe house as dawn broke. Red light painting the sky like judgment. Found Batman in the operations room coordinating the response to Marcus's intelligence. Got actionable intel, Batman said without looking up. Major regime crackdown prevented. Residential quarters stays secure. 10,000 civilians safe. Constantine nodded. Couldn't speak. Batman finally looked up. Saw Constantine's face. The hollowness behind his eyes. The weight he was carrying. What did it cost? Constantine pulled out a cigarette. Lit it with hands that would never stop shaking. Took a drag that tasted like ash and broken certainty. Everything, he said. Nothing. I don't fucking know anymore. Batman didn't press, didn't ask for details, just returned to the operations board. Moved pieces, saved lives through strategy and information. Constantine watched him work. Wondered if Batman felt this weight every time he made a choice. Every time he prioritized one life over another. Every time he played God with mortal stakes. Probably. Batman carried enough guilt for a dozen lifetimes. Maybe that was what made him effective. Maybe that was what made him dangerous. Maybe there was no difference. At 9:30 that morning, Sarah Bennett was executed in regime custody. No trial, no appeal. Just a woman who'd helped someone and paid for kindness with her life. Her children were taken, separated, given to families who would teach them that order mattered more than compassion, that obedience was safety, that kindness was weakness. Constantine felt it happen. Not supernaturally, not magically, just the weight of knowing, of having chosen this, of carrying the responsibility. Marcus defected successfully. His intelligence saved 10,000 lives, changed the war's trajectory, proved that the regime wasn't invincible, gave the insurgency hope. Constantine felt that too, the lives saved, the victory achieved, the good his choice had created. It didn't balance. Mathematics said it should. 10,000 lives versus one. Clear winner. Obvious choice. But Sarah's face remained. Her children's futures twisted by his decision. The small personal human cost of strategic thinking. In Lux, Lucifer served drinks to the desperate and damned. Constantine's choice added to his collection. Another data point, another confirmation of what humans did when forced to face impossible choices. They chose. They carried the weight. They lived with the consequences. And they told themselves the math made it acceptable. The strategy made it necessary. The scope made it right. Lucifer knew better, had always known better. Mathematics didn't absolve. Strategy didn't cleanse. Scope didn't erase the specific humanity of the one sacrificed for the many. But humans needed those lies. Needed to believe that choosing correctly meant being right. That calculating outcomes meant avoiding guilt. He let them believe it. Because belief was cheaper than truth, and truth was a luxury most people couldn't afford. Constantine smoked through 3 packs that day. Sat in the safe house watching Batman coordinate victories built on Marcus's intelligence. Watched 10,000 people go about their lives unaware they'd been saved. Unaware someone had died so they could remain ignorant. He wondered if they'd care. If knowing would change anything. If Sarah's sacrifice would matter to people who'd never know her name. Probably not. Most people didn't think about the calculus behind their survival. The choices made in dark rooms by desperate people trying to minimize casualties in a war that ground everyone down. That was fine. They didn't need to know. The weight was his to carry. The choice was his to live with. The debt was his to pay. And he would pay it. Every night. Every time he closed his eyes and saw her face. Every time he did the math and got the same answer, but wished it was different. That was the price Lucifer had extracted. Not his soul, not his life, just his certainty that choosing right meant being right. Constantine would carry that weight until it killed him. Or until he found a way to make it mean something. Or until he accepted that some prices couldn't be justified away with mathematics and good intentions. He suspected the last option was most likely. Acceptance. Not peace. Just the knowledge that he'd done what he had to do, and it still felt like damnation. Lucifer had promised to make him face his choices, promised to extract payment for lighting that beacon. He'd kept his word, every syllable of it, and Constantine would never forgive him for it, would never forgive himself for it, would carry both grudges until they became indistinguishable from his bones. That was how you paid the devil, not in currency, not in servitude, just in the weight of knowing exactly what your choices cost. Immediately. Completely. Forever. The sky over Metropolis turned the color of old blood. Not sunset, not weather. Something else. Something that predated both, and remembered when the world was young enough to fear divine retribution. Lucifer looked up from his book, closed it without marking the page, set it down with the care of someone who knew exactly what was coming and had prepared accordingly. "Right on schedule," he said to the empty bar. Took longer than expected, actually. The Presence's attack dog must be getting slow. The door didn't open. The walls didn't break. Reality simply parted like a curtain being drawn back, and the specters stepped through the gap. He was enormous. Not in physical size, but in presence, in weight. In the fundamental certainty that vengeance had found its target and would not be denied. Green cloak billowing in wind that didn't exist. White skin stretched over a face that had forgotten how to be human. Eyes that burned with the wrath of everything divine and pitiless. Lucifer Morningstar. The voice wasn't sound. It was judgment made audible. "Your interference ends now." Lucifer remained seated, didn't stand, didn't show respect or fear or anything except mild interest. "Spectre, I was wondering when you'd notice me. Though I'm surprised it took this long. Usually, divine judgment is more prompt. Your presence here violates the natural order. Your audit disrupts the balance. Your very existence in this realm is an affront to the laws that govern consequence and retribution." The specter moved forward. Each step made the air heavier. "You will leave, or you will be removed." "No." Single word. Flat refusal. The same response Lucifer had given Dr. Fate in the tower. The same response he'd given to every authority that had tried to compel him since he left hell. The specter's eyes blazed brighter. The temperature in Lux dropped. Frost formed on glasses. The walls groaned under pressure that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional space. You dare refuse the presence's instrument of vengeance. I dare refuse anyone who thinks judgment is the same as law. And enforcement is the same as justice. Lucifer stood now, slowly, deliberately. You're here because I'm making people face their choices. Because the audit is disrupting your neat little system of deferred consequences. Because actual accountability threatens the comfortable order where punishment comes later and people can pretend their actions don't matter in the moment. The audit is not justice. It is manipulation. Coercion through forced empathy. You have taken free will and made it a weapon against those who exercise it. I've done nothing of the sort. The audit doesn't force anyone to do anything. It just makes the consequences of their choices immediate instead of deferred. Lucifer walked around the bar, positioned himself in the center of the room. People are still free to choose. They just have to feel what those choices actually mean, in real time, without the buffer of self-deception. You speak of free will while constraining it with moral weight. Moral weight always existed. I just stopped letting people ignore it. Lucifer's eyes blazed to match the specter's. You're angry because I'm doing your job better than you do. Vengeance after the fact is easy. Making people face consequences immediately making them choose, knowing the price that's honest accountability. The specter raised one hand. Power gathered around his fingers. Not heat, not light. Pure retribution waiting to be unleashed. This is your final warning. Leave this realm. Cease your interference, or face judgment. Define judgment. You planning to kill me? Good luck, I'm older than most of the things you've destroyed. Harder to eliminate than the demons you've casually obliterated. Lucifer smiled. Or, are you going to drag me before the presence I'd actually enjoy that conversation? It's been too long since my father and I had words. Your arrogance will be your undoing. My arrogance is my foundation. It's what let me walk away from heaven. What let me abandon hell. What lets me stand here now telling the presence's favorite executioner that he has no authority over me. Lucifer spread his arms. Hit me with your best shot. See what happens. The specter's hand descended. The power released. Green light that carried the weight of every justified execution, every righteous killing. Every moment when vengeance and justice aligned perfectly, and death was the only answer. It struck Lucifer dead center. Should have obliterated him. Should have reduced him to less than ash. Should have erased him from existence and memory simultaneously. Lucifer didn't move, didn't block, didn't defend. Just stood there and let the specter's full power wash over him like rain. When the light faded, he was unchanged, not even singed, just standing there with that same slight smile. That the best the presence's vengeance can manage. He brushed non-existent dust off his suit. I'm disappointed. Expected more from divine retribution. The specter pulled back his hand, stared. For the first time since entering Lux, something other than certainty showed in those burning eyes. Confusion. How? Because you're vengeance, and I haven't done anything requiring vengeance. Because your judgment, and I'm not forcing anyone to do anything they didn't choose freely. Because you're the presence's instrument of punishment, and I'm not actually breaking any rules except the comfortable fiction that consequences should come later. Lucifer walked closer. You can't touch me. Not here. Not under these circumstances. Want to know why? Speak. Because everything happening in Lux is consensual. Everyone who enters does so willingly. Everyone who accepts gifts does so with full knowledge of the cost. Everyone who makes choices under the audit's influence makes those choices themselves. I'm not compelling anyone. I'm not lying to anyone. I'm not taking free will away. Lucifer stopped 3 feet from the specter, close enough that their power should have reacted violently, close enough that reality should have fractured from proximity. Nothing happened. Just 2 ancient beings staring at each other, one burning with righteous fury, the other smiling with cold certainty. You're forcing people to feel consequences, the specter said. No. I'm stopping them from avoiding consequences they were always meant to feel. There's a difference. Lucifer's voice went quieter, more dangerous. You punish people after they act, after they've done the damage, after bodies are buried and survivors are traumatized. You're reactive. Necessary perhaps, but ultimately, just clean up. He gestured around Lux. I make people face consequences before they've committed to courses of action they can't undo. I give them full knowledge of what their choices will cost. And then I let them choose anyway. That's not manipulation. That's honesty. And you can't punish honesty. Even you have rules. The specter's power flickered. Not weakening, just uncertain. Like a weapon discovering its target was the wrong shape for destruction. The presence will not tolerate your presence indefinitely. The presence has tolerated me since I left hell. Has tolerated me building my own existence outside divine jurisdiction. Has tolerated me interfering in mortal affairs more times than I can count. Lucifer turned away, walked back to the bar. Your father and I have an understanding. We don't interfere with each other directly. We don't force confrontations. We let free will play out and deal with consequences as they come. He poured himself a drink. Calm, unhurried. If the presence wanted me gone, he'd come himself. The fact that he sent you instead means he's not convinced I'm actually breaking our arrangement. You're here as a warning, a reminder, not an execution. The specter's form flickered. The cloak settled. The burning eyes dimmed slightly. You walk a narrow path, Morningstar. I've always walked narrow paths. It's the only way to maintain balance. Lucifer took a sip. But you're right. I'm pushing boundaries, testing limits, seeing how far I can go before someone with actual authority tries to stop me. And if that someone comes, then we'll have an interesting conversation. But until then, I'll continue operating within the rules as I understand them, making people face their choices, collecting payment for services rendered, ensuring that everyone involved in this war understands what it actually costs. The specter was silent for a long moment. The pressure in Lux didn't decrease, but it stopped building, reached an equilibrium. You will be watched. I've always been watched. Goes with the territory when you're the son of the morning. Lucifer raised his glass. But watch all you want. Everything I do here is voluntary. Everything is consensual. Everything is brutally honest. If that violates divine law, then divine law has some interesting priorities. The specter turned toward the tear in reality through which he'd entered. Stopped. One warning, Morningstar. The audit may be consensual, but its effects ripple beyond those who enter your establishment. Innocents are caught in consequences not of their making. Children lose parents. Families are destroyed. That collateral damage is not covered by your justification of free choice. Lucifer's expression hardened. Not anger, something colder. Innocents were already dying. Children were already losing parents. Families were already being destroyed. The only difference is, now the people making choices that cause that suffering can't pretend they're not responsible. He set his glass down with deliberate care. I didn't start this war. I didn't make Superman into a tyrant. I didn't force Batman to fight back. I'm just making sure everyone involved pays attention to what they're actually doing. And you think that makes you righteous? I don't think about righteous. I think about honest. Righteousness is what people claim when they want to avoid accountability for their choices. Honesty is what remains when you strip away all the self-deception. Lucifer met the specter's burning gaze. Go back to the presence. Tell him I'm not breaking our arrangement. Tell him I'm operating within established parameters, and tell him that if he has problems with my methods, he knows where to find me. The specter stepped through the tear. Reality closed behind him. The weight lifted from Lux gradually. Temperature normalized. Frost melted. Lucifer remained at the bar. Finished his drink, poured another. That went better than expected, he said to the empty room. Usually divine confrontations are messier. More property damage. More cosmic implications. He settled back into his chair. Picked up his book. Found his place despite not having marked it. But he's right about one thing. Innocents are suffering. Children are losing parents. Families are breaking. He opened the book, started reading. The question is whether that's my responsibility or just the inevitable cost of making people face truth in a world built on comfortable lies. He read for several minutes before speaking again. I suspect the answer is both. And I suspect I don't care enough to change course. He turned a page. Honesty is expensive. Truth is painful. Free will is brutal. But they're still better than the alternatives. Outside, the blood-red sky faded to normal twilight. The city continued its descent into war. The regime tightened control. The insurgency pushed back. Civilians died between them. The audit kept running, kept making everyone involved feel exactly what they were doing, kept preventing the comfortable distance between action and consequence. And the specter watched from beyond, not intervening, not approving, just watching, waiting to see if Lucifer would eventually cross a line that required true judgment rather than warning. Batman saw the sky turn red from his safe house, felt the pressure even through walls and wards, knew something cosmic had occurred, but had no way of knowing what. He continued planning, continued coordinating, continued using intelligence from sources he didn't trust to save lives in ways that required compromise. The weight of Constantine's choice still hung over the room. The weight of Sarah Bennett's death. The weight of 10,000 lives saved through one woman's sacrifice. Batman carried that weight alongside his own, added it to the burden he'd been carrying since this war started. Since Superman killed the Joker. Since the world split between order and freedom and left everyone else to bleed in the gap between. He wondered if the audit was affecting him too. If his increasing exhaustion was natural or supernatural. If the crushing certainty that every choice led to someone's death was his own realization or Lucifer's influence. Probably both. Truth usually was. Wonder Woman felt the sky change from regime headquarters. Felt the cosmic presence examining Lux. Felt it withdraw without destroying what it had found. The crown on her head pulsed in response. authority meeting judgment, and finding some kind of equilibrium. She continued giving orders, continued restoring control. The audit made every command heavier, made her feel their fear, their resistance, their will bending under hers. She carried it anyway, because order mattered more than comfort, because her strength could shape the world into something better than what humanity would build, left to their own chaos. The weight would break most people, but she wasn't most people. She was Wonder Woman, and she would carry this burden until the world was safe or she fell trying. In Lux, Lucifer read his book, served drinks to the desperate, collected stories of how people broke when forced to face what they'd become. The specter's warning didn't concern him. Divine judgment was reactive, predictable. As long as he operated within the rules, as long as everything remained consensual, he was untouchable. The question was how long he could maintain that position. How long before someone with actual authority decided his interpretation of the rules was too creative? How long before the presence himself decided to have that conversation? Lucifer suspected he had time. The presence was patient, preferred to let situations play out, believed in free will even when it led to suffering. They had that in common, at least, father and son. Both committed to the principle that choice mattered more than outcome, that free will was worth any price. The difference was the presence believed suffering eventually led to growth, to redemption, to higher understanding. Lucifer just believed suffering led to truth, and truth was its own justification. He turned another page, smiled slightly, waited for the next player to arrive. The game was far from over, and the bill was still coming due. The invitation arrived simultaneously for both of them. Not written, not spoken, just known. The certainty that Lux was waiting, that the final reckoning had come, that whatever Lucifer had been building toward was reaching its conclusion. Superman received it during a command briefing. Wonder Woman mid-sentence about troop deployments. The words stopped meaning anything, just the pull. The knowledge that refusing wasn't really an option anymore. Batman received it while analyzing regime movements. The intelligence from Lucifer's folder had proven accurate, too accurate. And now the bill for that accuracy was coming due. They arrived within minutes of each other. Superman through the front door, Batman through the second-floor window because old habits died hard. Both descended into the main room where Lucifer waited behind the bar, 2 glasses already poured. Superman and Batman saw each other. Neither spoke. 3 years of war compressed into that silence. 3 years of friendship destroyed. 3 years of choosing opposite sides of the same impossibility. "Gentlemen," Lucifer said, pleasant, conversational, like he was greeting old friends rather than enemies forced into proximity. "Thank you for coming. Please, sit." "I'm not here to sit," Superman said. His voice carried the weight of 3 years maintaining absolute authority. "I'm here because you've been interfering with regime operations, making my soldiers question orders, weakening the structure that's kept this world from tearing itself apart. I'm here because you gave me intelligence I couldn't verify," Batman said. Quieter, more exhausted. Intelligence that saved lives, but cost trust. "I want to know what you're actually after." Lucifer gestured to 2 chairs, positioned across from each other, forcing eye contact, forcing proximity. "Sit, both of you. This conversation requires you to be present, not just physically, actually present, facing each other, facing me, facing what you've become." Superman didn't move. Batman circled toward the stairs, Neither wanted to be the first to concede. Lucifer sighed, snapped his fingers, the door locked, the window sealed. Not trapped, just closed. The message clear. This conversation was happening, whether they wanted it or not. You can leave whenever you choose, Lucifer said. But if you leave now without hearing what I have to say, you'll never get another chance. The war continues. The killing continues. And eventually, one of you wins, and the other dies, and nothing actually changes, except who's wearing the crown. Batman moved first, sat in the chair facing Superman. Not surrender, just pragmatism. The recognition that Lucifer wouldn't have called them both here without reason. Superman remained standing, defiant. Then slowly, reluctantly took the other chair. His cape settled around him like a shroud, red and black and the weight of 3 years' choices. They sat facing each other, 3 feet apart, close enough to see the exhaustion in each other's eyes. Close enough to remember when they'd been allies, friends, heroes fighting the same fight. Close enough to see what they'd become instead. Lucifer walked around the bar, stood between them, not blocking their view of each other, just present, mediating, witnessing. 3 years ago, Superman killed the Joker, decided that justice through law had paland, that the only way to protect the innocent was to remove the choice for mercy. He looked at Superman. Was that wrong? Superman's jaw tightened. No. 3 years ago, Batman opposed that decision. Decided that even killing the worst among us crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. That justice required restraint, even when restraint felt like weakness. Lucifer turned to Batman. Was that wrong? Batman said nothing. Just stared at Superman with eyes that had seen too much and forgiven too little. Neither of you was wrong, Lucifer continued. Neither of you was right. You were both responding to an impossible situation with the tools you had available. And the world split between you because sometimes there is no correct answer. Just choices and consequences. Get to the point, Superman said. The point is, I'm offering you both something you haven't had since Metropolis burned. A way forward that doesn't end with one of you dead and the other proven right by survival. Lucifer pulled 2 contracts from his jacket, placed one in front of each of them. These are modified Morningstar clauses, terms adjusted for current circumstances, conditions that would allow both of you to achieve what you claim you want. Batman picked up his contract, read it. His expression darkened. Superman read his without touching it. His heat vision flared briefly, barely controlled. This is the same deal you offered before, Superman said. Stop controlling people's choices. Let chaos determine outcomes. Watch the world burn again. No. This deal acknowledges that some structure is necessary. Some intervention is required. It just prevents that structure from becoming absolute. Lucifer pointed to the relevant clause. You can maintain order. You can stop violence. You can intervene in threats. You just can't remove people's ability to dissent, to choose differently, to say no. He turned to Batman. And yours acknowledges that pure freedom leads to suffering. That sometimes intervention saves lives. It just prevents that intervention from becoming another form of tyranny. He indicated Batman's contract. You can fight for freedom. You can resist authority. You can protect people from control. You just can't build another surveillance state to replace Superman's. Can't become the thing you're fighting against. Both of them stared at the contracts. The terms were clear, reasonable, achievable. Both of them hated it. "I won't sign," Superman said. "I won't agree to let people choose chaos over safety. Won't watch the world slide back into the darkness we pulled it out of." "I won't sign," Batman said. "I won't agree to limitation on protecting people from authoritarian control. Won't let Superman's vision win because I'm bound by your conditions." Lucifer nodded slowly, like he'd expected this, like he'd known from the beginning how this would end. "Then we proceed to option C. The option neither of you will like, the option that proves my point more effectively than either agreement could have." He walked back to the bar, poured himself a drink, took his time, let them stew in refusal and uncertainty. "You're both so convinced you're right. Superman believes in order. Batman believes in freedom. Both of you have built your entire identity around these principles. Both of you would rather die than compromise them." Lucifer turned back. "So, I'm not going to make you compromise. I'm going to show you what happens when conviction meets truth without the buffer of self-deception." Superman stood. "Whatever you're planning, it won't work. I've faced beings more powerful than you. Threats that made your manipulation look like parlor tricks. I'm not threatening you. I'm enlightening you." Lucifer's eyes blazed brighter. "Sit down, Superman. This is the last thing I'll ask you to do voluntarily." Something in his tone made Superman sit. Not compulsion, just the certainty that refusing would be pointless. Lucifer raised his glass, spoke words in a language that predated human speech, not magic, just language operating at its most fundamental level, definition creating reality instead of describing it. The air in Lux changed, not physically, something deeper. Like a law had been written into existence and was now applying itself retroactively. "The damnation seal," Lucifer said quietly, "applied to everyone who's entered Lux, everyone who's accepted gifts, everyone who's made choices under the audit's influence. Including both of you." "What does it do?" Batman asked. His hand moved toward his utility belt, stopped, realized gadgets meant nothing against this. "It removes one ability, one very specific ability you've both relied on to maintain your conviction." Lucifer met their eyes. "From this moment forward, you can still lie. You can still deceive others. But you cannot lie to yourselves, cannot convince yourselves that what you're doing is justified, cannot hide behind necessity or greater good or any other rationalization." He set down his glass. "You'll feel the full weight of every choice, every casualty, every compromise, every line crossed in service of your principles. And you won't be able to tell yourselves it was worth it. Won't be able to defer that weight. Won't be able to pretend the ends justify the means." Superman's face went pale. "You're trying to break us." "I'm making you honest. There's a difference." Lucifer walked closer. "The seal doesn't change what you do, doesn't prevent you from making the same choices. It just makes you fully aware of what those choices cost, what they really cost, without the comfortable lies you've been using to sleep at night." Batman was already feeling it, the weight of Constantine's choice settling deeper, the deaths from intelligence that came from Lucifer, the people saved through methods he couldn't trust, all of it crystallizing, unavoidable. "This is revenge," he said. "This is honesty. Revenge would be destroying you, killing you, making you suffer. I'm just making you see clearly." Lucifer returned to the bar. "You're free to leave, free to continue your war, free to make the same choices you've been making." The only difference is you'll know completely, and without filter, what those choices actually mean. Superman stood, tried to use his heat vision, found it wouldn't activate. Not disabled, just unwilling to be used against someone who hadn't done anything requiring violence. The rules of Lux still applied. Even now, even this. "I'll find a way to reverse this," he said. "Good luck." The seal operates on the level of fundamental truth. You'd have to convince yourself that lies are better than honesty, that self-deception is preferable to awareness, that being blind to your own actions is somehow more righteous than seeing them clearly. Lucifer smiled, thin, cold. "I don't think even you can manage that rationalization." Batman moved toward the stairs, stopped. Why any of this? What do you actually want?" "I told you at the beginning. I want everyone in this war to stop pretending. Superman pretends force is protection. You pretend resistance is enough. Everyone pretends their side is clean." Lucifer gestured around Lux. "I've removed that pretense. Now you all have to live with what you actually are instead of what you tell yourselves." "People will die because of this," Batman said. "People are already dying. The difference is, now you'll feel every single one. Feel what it costs. Feel the weight of choosing to continue." Lucifer's voice went quieter, harder. "And you'll discover whether your conviction is strong enough to carry that weight, or whether you've been hiding behind comfortable rationalizations this entire time." Superman moved to the door. It opened. He stepped through into Metropolis night, felt the weight settle, felt 3 years of choices pressing down without buffer, without distance, without the ability to tell himself it had been necessary. He stumbled, caught himself, flew upward through sheer will, got 50 feet before the crushing weight of what he'd built made him drop. Land hard, knees on concrete. Every disappeared civilian, every executed dissenter, every family broken by regime authority, every choice made in service of order. All of it immediate, present, undeniable. He'd known it intellectually, had accepted the cost, had told himself it was worth it. Now he felt it, really felt it. And the justifications crumbled. Batman exited through the window, made it 3 blocks before the weight stopped him, made him grab a building edge, hold on, try to breathe through the crushing certainty of every compromise, every gray choice, every person sacrificed for strategy. Constantine's choice was his now. Sarah Bennett's death, 10,000 lives saved through one woman's sacrifice. The math still said it was right. The weight said it was murder. Both were true, simultaneously, inescapably. In Lux, Lucifer watched them go, finished his drink, began cleaning glasses that didn't need cleaning. And so we reached the conclusion. The verdict delivered not through judgment, but through awareness. Not through punishment, but through truth. He held a glass up to non-existent light. They'll continue fighting, still convinced they're right, still committed to their principles. But now they'll know what those principles actually cost, what they require, what they make them. He set the glass down, poured another drink. Some of them will break. Regime enforcers unable to continue. Insurgency fighters unable to justify the violence. Civilians caught between wills stop pretending either side is clean. He drank slowly, savored the taste of something that was neither good nor evil, just honest. Wonder Woman won't break. She's too strong, too committed, too willing to be the monster if that's what order requires. The crown will make her more dangerous, more effective, more absolutely convinced she's right, even while feeling the full weight of being wrong. He smiled slightly, without humor. That's the difference between strength and wisdom. Strength lets you carry weight that should break you. Wisdom knows when to set it down. Outside, the war continued. But something had changed. Something fundamental. The ability for anyone involved to pretend their hands were clean. Regime soldiers felt the weight of enforcement. Felt what their authority actually meant to the people experiencing it. Some continued. Some couldn't. Insurgency fighters felt the weight of resistance. Felt what their violence cost the innocent bystanders. Some continued. Some stopped. Civilians felt the weight of choosing sides. Felt what supporting either cause actually meant. Some chose anyway. Some retreated into neutrality. Some fled. The war didn't end. Conviction didn't disappear. But the comfortable lies that let people sleep at night were gone, burned away by truth that refused to be ignored. Luck stood at the crater's edge, unchanged, unmoving. A dark reminder that honesty was expensive, and truth was brutal, and free will meant carrying the full weight of your choices. Lucifer remained inside, serving drinks to the desperate, collecting stories, waiting to see who broke and who adapted, and who tried to pretend nothing had changed while drowning in awareness they couldn't escape. Superman returned to regime headquarters, tried to give orders, found the words sticking in his throat. Not prevented, just waited, carrying the full truth of what they meant, what they cost, what they made him. He gave them anyway, because the alternative was chaos, was giving up, was admitting 3 years of choices had been wrong. But now he felt it. Every moment, every command, every life bent to his will for their own good. The good intentions and the brutal methods and the inability to separate the two. Wonder Woman found him in the command center. Saw the change, the weight he was carrying, felt it herself through the crown, but handled it differently. "They're weakening," she said. "The insurgency is pushing harder, using our moment of doubt against us." "I know. We need to respond, decisively, show them that hesitation isn't the same as weakness." Superman looked at her, really looked, saw absolute conviction, saw someone who could carry any weight and call it necessary, saw what he'd been and what he was becoming and the gap between. "Do it," he said. "Coordinate the response. I need time to think." She nodded. Left. Began giving orders that felt like crushing stones, but didn't slow her down. Batman returned to the insurgency safe house. Found his people planning operations based on intelligence he'd provided. Intelligence from Lucifer. Intelligence that was working perfectly while costing everything. "We've got them on the defensive," one fighter said. "Young, idealistic. Still believed they were the good guys. Your intel was perfect. We're winning." Batman said nothing. Just stared at maps that showed victories bought with blood, bought with compromises, bought with becoming the thing they fought against in smaller, more palatable ways. "Keep pushing," he finally said. "But carefully. Every life lost is ours to carry." The fighter looked confused, shrugged, returned to planning. Batman sat in darkness and felt the weight of every choice settle deeper. Felt Sarah Bennett's death. Felt the soldiers killed in ambushes. Felt the civilians caught between forces who claimed to protect them. Felt it and knew he'd continue anyway. Because stopping meant letting Superman win. Meant accepting tyranny as the price of peace. The weight didn't change the answer, just made him hate it. In Lux, Lucifer closed for the night, locked the door, turned off lights that had no source. sat alone in darkness that was comfortable rather than oppressive. "The verdict is delivered," he said to no one. "Not guilty, not innocent, just aware, completely, unavoidably, painfully." He raised his glass to the empty room. "To free will, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts, because that's the only way you know it's real." He drank. The liquid tasted like truth. Bitter, necessary, impossible to avoid once you'd started. The war would continue. The killing would continue. The suffering would continue. But now everyone involved knew exactly what they were doing, what it cost, what it made them. And they would choose to continue anyway. Or they would break, or they would find some third option Lucifer hadn't anticipated. That was the point. Not to control the outcome, not to force a solution, just to remove the comfortable lies and see what people did when faced with unfiltered truth. Some would rise to it, some would fall. Some would find strength in honesty. Some would discover their conviction was built on self-deception. All of them would pay the bill, completely, without deferment, without the luxury of pretending later would somehow be easier. Lucifer finished his drink, set the glass down, prepared to leave. Lux would remain, empty but ready, waiting for whoever came next. Whoever needed to face their choices without filter. Whoever was brave enough or desperate enough to walk through that door, knowing the cost. The devil had opened for business, had made his point, had delivered his verdict. Now he would watch what humanity did, with awareness it couldn't escape. And he suspected, with something approaching hope, that some of them might actually surprise him, but probably not. Lucifer Morningstar left no monuments, no lasting structures. Lux vanished from the crater as suddenly as it appeared, leaving only questions and weight. But his impact remained. Immediate. Permanent. Inescapable. The regime fractured, not destroyed, not defeated, just unable to maintain the fiction that force equaled protection. Superman's authority continued, but hollow. Enforced through exhausted determination rather than conviction. Wonder Woman rose to fill the gap, carrying weight that should have crushed her and calling it duty. The insurgency bled support. Fighters who justified violence for freedom now felt every casualty. Some continued, some couldn't. Batman remained because stopping meant surrender, but the certainty that had sustained him crumbled beneath awareness he couldn't escape. Civilians learned the hardest lesson. That both sides had been using them. That every banner of righteousness was stained. That choosing meant carrying weight without the comfort of believing you'd chosen correctly. Lucifer's gift was simple. Brutal. Honest. He'd made pretense impossible. Made self-deception unviable. Made everyone face what their choices actually cost. The world didn't heal. It just stopped lying about the wound.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And be sure to turn on notification so you won't miss our future videos. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.